Let me ask you something that most people are too afraid to ask out loud. Are you scared of losing your mind? Not your body. Your mind. The slow forgetting. The names that slip away. The conversations you cannot follow. The face of someone you love becoming someone you cannot quite place. Because dementia is now the fastest growing cause of death in the developed world. More than 55 million people globally are living with it right now. And the medical conversation around it consistently arrives at the same uncomfortable conclusion. There is no cure. There is no pharmaceutical reversal. There is management. There is slowing. There is preparing. But no cure. Because on this small island 400 miles off the coast of Japan, in the villages where the oldest living humans on Earth wake up every morning and go about their day with sharp minds and clear memories and full presence, dementia is almost completely absent. Not rare. Almost completely absent. Less than half the rate seen in Americans of the same age. And in the oldest traditional villages, where the diet has changed the least. The numbers are even more extraordinary than that. Researchers flew in from around the world expecting to find a genetic explanation, something in the DNA of these island people that simply protected their brains from the disease destroying everyone else's. They did not find genetics. They found a purple food, a food so ordinary, so inexpensive, so completely available in every grocery store in the world that the researchers almost missed it entirely. Today, Senior Spring Vitality gives you everything. The village, the science, the purple food, and the complete Okinawan morning system that has been quietly protecting human brains for 400 years. Drop your country in the comments right now. Where are you watching from? Because this community reaches every corner of the world, and what we are about to show you belongs to every single person in it. Before we go further, grab the free cookbook recipe from the link in the description. Stay with us, let's go. Okinawa, a small island in the East China Sea, 400 miles south of mainland Japan, a place that most of the world knows, if it knows it at all, from the Second World War battles fought on its beaches in 1945. But the researchers who arrived decades later were not studying its history. They were studying its elderly. Because Okinawa was producing something that defied every actuarial table, every medical projection, every demographic model that the modern world had built around human aging. Centenarians, in extraordinary numbers, living not just long, but well. Physically capable, mentally sharp, socially engaged. Fully present in their lives and their communities in a way that the developed world had stopped expecting from anyone past 80. Okinawa has 22 centenarians per 100,000 inhabitants. The world average sits between 7 and 15. The island is producing people who reach 100 at a rate that makes every longevity researcher on Earth pay attention. And the numbers that matter most for today's video are not about lifespan. They are about the brain. Okinawans suffer less than half the rate of dementia seen among similarly aged Americans. Not 10% less, not 20% less. Less than half. For the traditional villagers eating the diet their grandparents ate. The numbers are even more striking. The Okinawa Centenarian Study, the largest study of elderly people ever conducted, funded by Japan's Ministry of Health, documented over 600 Okinawan centenarians across 30 years of research. What it found about cognitive function in the oldest members of this community defied everything the Western medical establishment believed about aging brains. Sharp minds, clear memories, present, engaged, functional, at 100 years old. And the common thread running through every single one of their lives was not a pharmaceutical, was not a supplement, was not a medical intervention. It was breakfast. Specifically, what they had been eating for breakfast every single morning since they were children. The purple food. Its name in Okinawan is beni imo. In English, the purple sweet potato. A humble tuberous root grown in the volcanic soil of the Ryukyu Islands for over 400 years. Since the 1600s, when beni imo arrived on the island from Central America via trade routes, it has been the foundation of the Okinawan diet. Not an occasional food. Not a side dish or a seasonal treat. The foundation. Approximately 60% of total calories consumed by the traditional Okinawan diet, the diet eaten by the centenarians now living past 100 with sharp minds, came from the purple sweet potato. 60%. Every morning. Every day. For generations. American gerontologist Dr. Craig Wilcox, who spent decades studying the Okinawan centenarians, said it directly. On Okinawa, it is not an ice cream truck that visits your street. It is the sweet potato truck. And Okinawans love purple sweet potato ice cream. This is a 400-year-old staple food of the longest-lived people on Earth, eaten daily by women in their 90s who still laugh loudly and remember everything. Now here is what makes the purple sweet potato specifically, not the orange sweet potato, not the white sweet potato, so extraordinary for the brain. Beni imo contains anthocyanins, the deep purple pigments that give it its extraordinary color, at concentrations that exceed even blueberries. The fruit most celebrated in Western nutritional science for brain protection. The beni imo contains more anthocyanin per serving than blueberries. And anthocyanins do something inside the brain that no pharmaceutical has yet replicated. They cross the blood-brain barrier. Most compounds consumed as food or supplement never reach the brain directly. The blood-brain barrier, the protective filtration system that separates the bloodstream from the central nervous system, blocks most substances from passing through. Anthocyanins from purple foods are among the small number of dietary compounds documented to cross that barrier and work directly inside the brain tissue itself. Once inside the brain, anthocyanins reduce neuroinflammation, the chronic low-grade inflammation of brain tissue that accumulates across decades and is now understood to be the primary mechanism behind Alzheimer's disease and most forms of dementia. They protect the myelin sheaths that insulate neural pathways. They support the production of BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, the protein that the brain uses to grow new neural connections and maintain cognitive flexibility. In simpler terms, anthocyanins from the purple sweet potato are doing inside the brain exactly what the pharmaceutical research into dementia prevention has been trying to replicate for decades in a capsule. The Okinawan women have been eating it for breakfast every morning for 400 years. Let me give you the complete science, because this is the part that matters most for every person watching this channel who is over 60 and quietly worried about what is happening inside their brain. Dementia does not begin at diagnosis. It begins decades earlier. In the slow accumulation of neuroinflammation, the same systemic inflammation that drives heart disease and cancer, but concentrated inside the neural tissue of the brain. For years before any memory symptom appears, beta-amyloid plaques are accumulating between brain cells. Tau proteins are tangling inside neurons. Neural pathways are being disrupted and lost. The brain is losing the structural connections that memory, language, and executive function depend on. By the time the first symptom appears, the first forgotten name, the first lost word, the first confusion that passes but leaves a trace of fear behind it. The process has already been running for 15 to 20 years. This is the window that the Okinawan diet works inside. Not the diagnosis window, the prevention window. The Hisayama study, one of the most rigorous dementia research projects ever conducted, followed 1,071 Japanese participants aged 60 and over for 24 full years. What it found is the most direct scientific evidence linking specific foods to dementia risk ever documented in any Asian population. Subjects with the highest vegetable intake had 27% lower risk of developing dementia and 31% lower risk of Alzheimer's disease specifically, compared to those with the lowest vegetable intake. Not a small difference, not statistically marginal. 27% lower risk of dementia, 31% lower risk of Alzheimer's from vegetables. And within vegetables, the purple sweet potato's specific anthocyanin content puts it at the top of the brain protective food hierarchy by a significant margin. The beni imo also contains a unique protein called sporamin, found in virtually no other common food, that research published in peer-reviewed journals has identified as having documented anti-aging effects at the cellular level. Sporamin activates antioxidant pathways that protect cells from the oxidative stress that accelerates cognitive decline. 60% of the Okinawan diet. Every morning. For 400 years. The brain that results from that daily practice is the brain that reaches 100 without forgetting. The purple sweet potato is the foundation. But it does not work alone. The Okinawan morning is a complete system. Every food doing a specific job alongside every other food. That together creates the internal environment where dementia cannot establish itself. Here is the complete documented Okinawan morning. Beni imo, the purple sweet potato. Steamed simply. Every morning. The way Okinawan grandmothers have prepared it since the 1600s. No butter, no sugar. No elaborate preparation. Steamed and eaten with the same reverence that the morning deserves. The anthocyanins, the sporamin, the beta-carotene, the potassium and B vitamins and fiber, all delivered directly into the bloodstream from the very first food of the day. Miso soup, the morning anchoring ritual of the entire Japanese world, but with specific significance in Okinawa. Miso is fermented soy. The fermentation process creates beneficial bacteria that populate the gut microbiome and directly regulate the gut-brain axis, the documented neural pathway connecting digestive health to brain function and mood. Up to 70% of the neurotransmitter serotonin, the compound most directly associated with mood stability, emotional resilience, and cognitive clarity, is produced not in the brain, but in the gut. A well-fed gut microbiome fed by fermented miso every morning is literally producing the neurochemicals that keep the brain functioning clearly. Turmeric tea. This is the detail that makes the Okinawan dementia numbers make complete biological sense. Turmeric figures prominently in the Okinawan diet as both a spice and a morning tea. And turmeric's compound curcumin has shown in both clinical and population studies to slow the progression of dementia. India, where turmeric is consumed daily as a dietary staple, has some of the lowest Alzheimer's disease rates documented anywhere on Earth. Okinawa, where turmeric tea is a morning ritual, has less than half the dementia rate of Americans. Curcumin inhibits the formation of the beta-amyloid plaques that accumulate between brain cells in Alzheimer's disease. It reduces neuroinflammation at the molecular level. It activates the same anti-aging cellular pathways as caloric restriction, without the caloric restriction. A cup of turmeric tea every morning, with a pinch of black pepper, which increases curcumin's bioavailability by 2,000%. The same synergy we discussed in our Sardinian video. Ancient cultures discovering correct biochemistry centuries before laboratories existed to explain it. Tofu. Plant-based protein at the morning meal. Providing all essential amino acids without the inflammatory load of processed animal protein. The isoflavones in traditional fermented tofu, modulating estrogen metabolism. The complete protein profile supporting the neurotransmitter production that cognitive function depends on. Seaweed. Eaten daily throughout Okinawa by the elders. Rich in iodine, the mineral that directly supports thyroid function. The thyroid regulates the metabolic rate of every cell in the body, including every brain cell. Iodine deficiency is one of the most common preventable causes of cognitive decline globally. The Okinawan elders eat seaweed every day and have been doing so for their entire lives. That complete morning, purple sweet potato, miso soup, turmeric tea, tofu, seaweed, is the documented daily breakfast of the women who reach 90 with sharp minds and clear memories and full presence. Available in every Asian grocery store in the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, and Australia right now. Now, the part of the Okinawa story that nobody in the mainstream health conversation talks about loudly enough, because there is a natural experiment that has been running in Okinawa for the last 60 years, a before and after so clear, so documented, so scientifically unambiguous that it should permanently end every argument about whether food affects cognitive health. Here is what happened. After World War II, the United States military established a significant presence in Okinawa. And with that presence came something that changed the island more profoundly than any battle had. The American diet arrived. Fast food restaurants opened. Processed food became available. Refined sugar flooded the market. Spam and processed meat became status symbols of modernity and prosperity. The purple sweet potato, the humble beni imo that had fed Okinawan brains for 400 years, was gradually replaced on younger generations' plates by the foods that Americans were eating. And then the researchers started measuring again. For most of the 20th century, Okinawa had the longest life expectancy of all 47 prefectures in Japan. The longest-lived people on the most long-lived island nation on Earth. By 2002, Okinawa had fallen from 4th place to 26th in the longevity rankings of Japanese prefectures. In less than 2 generations. And the dementia numbers. The extraordinary low dementia rates that had made Okinawa the most studied population for cognitive aging in the world began moving toward the Western average as the younger generations who had grown up eating the Western diet began reaching the age where dementia typically emerges. The genetics did not change. The island did not move. The climate did not shift. The food changed. And a population that had been proving for 400 years that the human brain can remain sharp and clear and fully functional into extreme old age, began developing dementia at rates approaching the population whose diet they had adopted. This is the experiment the pharmaceutical industry does not want discussed, because it answers the question they have been spending billions of dollars pretending is unanswerable. Can diet prevent dementia? Okinawa answered that question twice. Once with 400 years of sharp minds on a purple sweet potato diet, and once with a generation of accelerating cognitive decline on a Western diet. The answer is yes, and you do not need a pharmaceutical trial to see it. You need a history book and a grocery receipt. If Senior Spring Vitality is the channel giving you this truth clearly, subscribe right now. Hit the notification bell. Share this video with someone you love who is in the early stages of the worry that most people never say out loud. Before we get to the complete daily system, one element of the Okinawan longevity picture that the food conversation always leaves out: the Moai. From birth. Every Okinawan is placed into a social group called a Moai, a committed community of 5 people who move through life together, who share resources in times of difficulty, who meet regularly throughout their lives, who provide the social accountability, emotional support, and sense of belonging that the research on longevity consistently identifies as one of the most powerful protective factors against cognitive decline. Loneliness is not a soft emotional issue. It is a biological one. Chronic social isolation produces cortisol elevations that directly damage hippocampal tissue, the brain region most critical for memory formation and retrieval. the same region attacked earliest and most devastatingly by Alzheimer's disease. The Okinawan women eat the purple sweet potato every morning, and they eat it in community. They prepare it together. They share it. They sit with the people who have known them their entire lives and talk and laugh and argue and remember. The food protects the brain from the inside. The Moai protects the brain from the outside. Together, they create an internal environment where the neuroinflammation that causes dementia simply cannot find sufficient fuel to establish itself. You cannot buy a Moai supplement. But you can build one. You can call someone today. You can join a community. You can choose connection over isolation every day the same way the Okinawans choose the purple sweet potato every morning. Here is the complete Okinawan daily system adapted for your modern kitchen. Every food documented from the centenarian research. Every food available in your grocery store or Asian market right now. Morning, the brain protection system. Before anything else, 1 cup of turmeric tea, a 1/4 teaspoon of turmeric in hot water with a pinch of black pepper and a small amount of raw honey. This is the first thing into the body every morning. The curcumin bioavailability peaks when consumed on an empty stomach before food arrives. Then, the purple sweet potato. Steamed simply. 1 medium beni imo. If you cannot find the purple variety locally, regular orange sweet potato carries beta-carotene and fiber, but for the brain-specific anthocyanin benefit, seek out the purple variety in Asian grocery stores. It is there, usually labeled Okinawan sweet potato or purple sweet potato. Alongside, miso soup, 1 cup, traditional dashi broth with miso paste dissolved into it. Add tofu cubes. Add wakame seaweed. This combination delivers fermented beneficial bacteria for the gut-brain axis, complete plant protein for neurotransmitter production, and iodine for thyroid and cognitive function simultaneously. This complete morning delivers anthocyanins for direct brain protection. Curcumin for neuroinflammation reduction. Fermented bacteria for gut-brain axis support. Complete protein for neurotransmitter production. Iodine for thyroid cognitive support. Beta-carotene for cellular protection. Every morning, consistently. Starting tomorrow. Midday, the main meal. The Okinawan main meal is at noon, not in the evening. This is critical and mirrors the timing principles we covered in our Sardinian video. The body's metabolic machinery, the oleocanthal absorption, the polyphenol bioavailability, the insulin sensitivity. All peak at midday during active waking hours. Tofu as the primary protein. Stir-fried with goya, bitter melon, and vegetables in a small amount of oil. Alongside, more purple sweet potato or taro. A side of pickled vegetables for additional probiotic benefit. Goya, bitter melon, deserves specific mention. This is the vegetable that appears in almost every documented Okinawan centenarian kitchen. It contains charantin and polypeptide P, compounds that directly support blood sugar regulation. And blood sugar instability is one of the most under-discussed risk factors for cognitive decline, with chronically elevated blood sugar now understood to contribute directly to the beta-amyloid plaque formation that precedes Alzheimer's. Evening, light and early. A small bowl of vegetable soup, more miso, a small amount of fish, perhaps sardines or mackerel for omega-3 fatty acids that support neural membrane integrity. Seasonal vegetables. The evening meal is the smallest of the day, finished early. The overnight fast beginning as soon as possible after the last food, allowing the brain's glymphatic system to activate. The glymphatic system is the brain's own waste clearance mechanism, the biological process by which the brain flushes the metabolic waste products, including beta-amyloid that accumulate during waking hours. It only activates fully during sleep and fasting. The earlier the last meal, the longer the glymphatic window. The longer the glymphatic window, the more thoroughly the brain clears its own waste. The more thoroughly the brain clears its own waste, the less amyloid accumulates across decades. The Okinawan women do not know about the glymphatic system. They just know that eating light and early feels right and has always felt right. Science is simply explaining why they were always correct. Before the complete summary, one Okinawan eating principle that makes every food in this system work more powerfully than it would without it. Hara Hachi Bu. We covered this in our Dr. Hinohara video. The Confucian teaching spoken before every meal across Okinawa for generations: eat until you are 80% full, not satisfied, not stuffed, 80%. And here is the connection to dementia that most people never hear explained. Caloric restriction, eating slightly less than full satiety at every meal, has been documented in animal studies to reduce beta-amyloid plaque formation in the brain, to increase the production of BDNF, the brain growth protein that maintains neural plasticity and cognitive function into old age, and to activate the same cellular autophagy pathways that the glymphatic system uses to clear neural waste overnight. Hara Hachi Bu is not just a weight management tool. It is a cognitive protection practice that the Okinawan culture has been applying, without knowing the neurological mechanism, for over 1,000 years. Stop at 80%. Every meal. Every day. The brain you protect is the brain that remembers your grandchildren's names at 95. Go buy one this week. Steam it tomorrow morning. Add the turmeric tea alongside. Make the miso soup. That is the morning that has protected a generation of brains from the disease that the rest of the world has accepted as inevitable. Your brain deserves the same morning. Starting tomorrow. This is Senior Spring Vitality. We will see you in the next one.